Welcome back to our circle of healing and recovery. The elders say it's important for us to practice silence. They say, whenever we get together as a group or as an individual, we should start by being still. I want you to take the next 2 minutes to get quiet and say a prayer to our Creator and ask Him to put words and thoughts in your mind which will help you focus.
Welcome back to our journey through the steps. Let's see what we could build on. What do we have to work with so far? We've talked about a variety of different concepts, models, and we've now taken our first in-depth look at finding the instructions in the recovery text. And we left off with a discussion of step 1, feeling like crap. Looking forward to getting out of that, I hope. And this discussion of the step 2 is building the hope, building the other side of what we saw in step 1. So let's climb in. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Where might we find that? Well, we'd find it in the recovery textbook, and there will be specific instructions. But before I go in and talk about the instructions, I'd like to talk a little bit about this notion of sanity. I had a really tough time with this when I first came around to recovery. I had been raised in a family. My father had been in and out of mental hospitals a lot. And I had, as a young child, declared that that wasn't going to happen to me. I was not going to be one of those people who was insane. And when I first came to recovery and saw this step, I was terrified of even opening the door just a crack that I too might be thinking and behaving in an insane manner. So I went looking for some definitions to figure out what are they talking about when they talk about sanity. So I went looking in the dictionary and I found some definitions. Some of them help, some of them don't. Defining sanity, one of those is soundness of mind, would be sanity. Another is being sane. I didn't find that all that useful. Mental health was another. And tendencies to avoid extremes. Those last two I found quite helpful because it caused me to then go searching for models of mental health. And it was clear to me that in my active stage of my addiction, I was not avoiding extremes. You could characterize my thinking and behavior as always at the extreme and rarely in the center. I don't think I'm unique in that for people who end up in recovery fellowships or working 12-step recovery processes. So those became useful for me. So I went, okay, well, is there something I can build on here? Is there a model of mental health we could use? So one of the things that we'll use here before we go into an in-depth discussion of the instructions and work of the second step is to talk about a model for mental health. This is not the only model for mental health, but it's quite a good one. And it's used quite frequently in self-development, self-image, self-esteem courses. So let's have a look at a model first. So according to the textbooks, if you think about the human thought process, the human mental process, we operate as 3 subsystems. The human mental system operates as 3 subsystems. Those systems or subsystems are frequently called the conscious, the subconscious, and the creative or superconscious, the creative subconscious or superconscious, a variety of different terms used there. And over this next module, we'll be building on what is the work that each of these subcomponents have to do in order to keep balanced mental health. But first, I'd like to do a little exercise with you. I believe that in front of you, you have a card. And on this card, there's a picture. So if you'd have a look at this just one time here, some people see a picture of a lady on this card. Anyone? Hands up. Who sees a picture of a lady? Very good. Everyone has a picture of a lady. How many people see a young lady on this card? Hands up. Okay. How many people see an old lady? Good. Someone must see both. Your hand went up twice. Interesting. You all got the same cards here. Okay. There are, in fact, two images on this card, an image of an old lady and of a young lady. And frequently, people can see one and not the other. So why don't you just take a second, and if you've got someone next to you who can only see one and you can see the other, just quickly help each other. Again, in this work, we try to help each other see things that we couldn't see before by sharing information. So just take a second and... Okay, if I could have your attention back up here with me, please. Okay, so everyone's got it. You can now see both images, both the old lady and the young lady. And with a little bit of practice, you can switch back and forth between these two images. Now, let's talk a little bit about what was going on for the period of time when you could only see one and not the other. We talked earlier about a term called scotoma and another term called lock-on and lock-out. We become attracted to that which we see first that makes sense. So if someone says there's a picture on this card and I see a picture, I've solved the puzzle, end of story. I stop scanning for more information. And I lock on to that's what the truth is. So lock-on, lock-out causes us to not continue to scan for information once we see something that makes sense to us. Now, the scotoma is a sensory blocking out of information. It actually blocks out the other image for us quite successfully because we don't need it. We'll be talking more about when it screens out and how it screens out information and how we could use it deliberately to screen in information if we were trying to find more of value in our life. So what happens here, and this is just a very quick little exercise to get us to think about, are we seeing all that's possible? And in those situations where we don't see all that's possible, is there some part of our mental system that's designed to block it out? And if it is, could we condition it to see better? We believe that that's true. If we understand this model of mental health, there are things we could do that would cause us to see more and be more in our lives. Would you like the secret? I think I'll share it with you. So, remember we said earlier that being more and getting more in your life is not about working harder, it's about thinking differently. So how would we think differently if we choose to? Well, there is a piece of this which is called the conscious mind. So build this model one piece at a time. So the conscious mind is the part that's always active through our senses. Taste, touch, sight, sound, smell. And it's always operating, always operating. It's always scanning our environment. What's going on here? Yeah. And then in the next piece, the subconscious mind has information stored about past experiences. So while we're scanning with our conscious mind, we're comparing it to what's stored in our subconscious mind about past experiences to see, have we seen anything like this before? Can we make sense of this? Yeah. Then we do a little piece called evaluation. And we evaluate what is this most probably leading us towards. And then we make a decision, sort of like that. Fight or flight, kiss him or kick him, love him or leave him, whatever. And that process is always running. It's running constantly between the conscious and the subconscious. Sense is always scanning current information, looking in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, as you will see in your workbooks, is where we record or store the information that we call truth. It's the world as we believe it to be. And it may not be accurate, but the system doesn't mind. It's our version of the truth, and it's what we operate off of. So if along the way we have distorted some information and stored it in there as a truth, like that all green-eyed people are like the Tasmanian devil, therefore we don't do relationships with Taz, or whatever it is, it'll operate like that. Now, what causes it to operate like that is the creative subconscious, the third piece of this system. And its job is to maintain sanity. Maybe a funny version of sanity. Sanity in this context means when the two pictures match. When what we're experiencing in our life matches up to how we expected our life to be experienced right now. So let me give you a couple of silly examples here. Suppose that you just happen to have bought a lottery ticket and your number came up. Now, what you're seeing happening right live on television or wherever it's happening is you've just become a multimillionaire. That's what you're sensing. Stored inside of your truth table, your subconscious mind, is a picture of who you are and how much money you have. And if the picture you've got in here says, my bank balance at the end of every month is either 0 plus or minus 50. But that's who I am and what my finances look like. And now suddenly through your senses, you get this multi-million-dollar picture. The creative subconscious actually now has a problem because these two pictures do not match. And what most likely will happen is it will find a way for you to get rid of the dough. All right? Let me think. How can I spend my millions? Well, I could buy a home for Mom. I could buy a camp trailer and go in the mountains. I could go to Cripple Creek and recycle some of this money back through the slot machines. I could fly around the world. And so you've just hit a $3 million jackpot, and you've got $6 million worth of ideas on how to spend it. And over a period of weeks or months, you sort of take this stack of cash that you've got, and it goes like this and this and this and this. And eventually it gets down to 0 plus or minus 50, and you think, whew, boy, am I glad to be back in my own neighborhood. I know how to cope with this. I didn't know how to be a millionaire. A lot of stress. You know how hard it is to act like those people and think like that and dress like that and go in those places. I didn't belong there anyhow. Right? No problem. The creative subconscious solved the problem for you. It gave you all these ways to get rid of the money. Now suppose that, in another way, that you might just, if you're in a recovery program and you've not navigated these stages of development perfectly, like many of us haven't, you might just have trouble with relationships. So a truth that you might have is, I am a disaster at relationships, and I have proof the last 17 ended up in tears. But you know, you've dusted yourself off, you've come out of the closet, it's been 6 or 7 months, and you've decided you're going to give it another try, and you've met the perfect person. It's love this time for sure. And you're really going to try. You're really going to try to have a healthy relationship. And a strange thing starts to happen. The other person actually treats you well, and you're treating them well, and the relationship is going along very nicely. And what happens now is your creative subconscious has a problem. Because the truth over here is that I'm a disaster at relationships, and what I'm sensing is a relationship is going well. Those two pictures don't match. Relax. The creative subconscious will solve this problem for you. In a matter of days, it will find a way for you to annoy that person, make them mad, get them upset, get them out of your life. You'll do something stupid. Don't worry about it. You don't have to scheme it up. See, this system is really good at solving problems. And it's always operating between the conscious and subconscious and the creative subconscious. It's like an automatic pilot system for your life. You know how automatic pilot systems work? They just follow the instructions that are programmed in. What's programmed in is habits, attitudes, beliefs, expectations, our version of the truth about who we are and how our life should go. And the autopilot system keeps us on that course. So if our life isn't going the way we would like it to go, we might want to think about how would we re-instruct this autopilot system. Because this is the leverage point for change. Don said earlier, if life's not going the way you want it to go, you might want to think about what you're thinking. Well, peel that down another layer. think about what you think the truth to be about who you are and how your life should go, and how other people treat you or don't treat you, and how much money you have, and what kind of education you have, and what kind of job you have, and what kind of clothes you wear, and what kind of house you live in. All of these things are the truth that you have stored inside of yourself. And there's some funny ones. So we pick these up from a variety of different places, from families of origins and grandparents and teachers and churches and a variety of different, we get these instructions and they become the truth. And one of those truths is, you know, children must hold hands when they cross the street because they might get hurt. That's a reasonable instruction when you're 6. But if you're 46 and you're still grabbing people's hand when you're at the stoplight, you're going to get hurt. And it won't be by the cars. See? Is that an instruction for life still appropriate at the stage of life you're in? Right? Dirty little boys and girls shouldn't mess around with sex. Might be an appropriate means of keeping kids out of sex too young. But if you're an adult and you're trying to have a relationship, sex is a part of a relationship. You have to update that script around what would that be like healthy sexual relationship and relating to a person like that. And you can't do it with a 10-year-old script of what sex is about that you got from dirty little boy down the street. Right? What is the adult version of that? And many of us are operating off of these outdated scripts in our life. Many of us come from low self-esteem families. And we've been told over and over again about how we're not going to make it and we're no good. And people like us don't go to those kind of schools. They don't have those kind of jobs. They don't have those kind of educations. They don't hang around with those kind of people. And that gets programmed in as the truth. And then we try to step outside of that and have a different kind of relationship, a different kind of education, a different kind of career. And we feel guilty. Or we sabotage it and get back where we belong and everybody feels good. Ah, welcome home. We knew you wouldn't make it over there on that side of town. We knew that those kind of people weren't our kind of people. Right? Who said? Low self-esteem people, that's who said. Get back where you belong. And the system is always pulling us back where we belong. It doesn't care whether it's good for us or bad for us. It just always keeps us programmed that way. So over here I have a little summary of this. Call it the summary of the thought process. And so we think about this whole thing as a model, always working. So let me just give a quick review. We're always scanning through our senses. The conscious mind is sensing, have I seen anything like this before? What is it most probably leading me towards? Something good or something bad? Yes or no, do nothing. Where is it getting the information to associate? Over here, where we recorded the truth about who we are and how life should go. This is our version of the truth. And oh, by the way, other things stored over here are automatic body functions. I bet there's, you know, we're not too far since we had our lunch break. There's probably a whole lot of unmanaged digestion going on in the room right now. No one's thinking about how it works, or how to make it work. It's just happening. It's an automatic body function. Also, anything that becomes a habit gets programmed in here, and it goes on automatic. For example, people who drove to this workshop, you probably didn't spend all your time thinking about, am I going to shift the gears? Am I going to do the turn signal? Where's my left foot? Where's my right foot? Am I going to accelerate or brake? You were sort of on automatic. You were watching the road ahead and thinking about something else most of the time. And that was, now, when you're starting to do something, it is awkward, and it takes a while to get it programmed in. But once it becomes habit, it gets on automatic. The creative subconscious is the autopilot controller over here. You said you wanted to be going this way. You said this is the kind of relationships you have. Let me give you some. You said you like your bank account to be this way. Let me give you some. You said this is the kind of career you have. Let me give you some. This is the kind of family you have. Let me give you some. You think it's hard to stop your addictive thinking and behavior? I'll help you believe it's hard. If you think it's easy, I'll help you find the easy way. Right? Now, this is the leverage point for change. Understanding how the human system works and using the 12-step recovery process to pull out of here information about what are our outdated scripts, patterns of truth, habits, attitudes, beliefs, expectations, and cast those off and program in now a new set of more appropriate scripts, truths, beliefs about what it would be like to be the person we choose to be. Now, how would we get those scripts if we've never been there, right? That's a real challenge because we've got a lot of information about how it used to be. How do we get the scripts for the future of how to program this? Well, the steps give us that. The steps give us that. So, but before we move on into that, I'd like to just use another little exercise with you. You have some cards in front of you that look a lot like this. And these cards, when you look on those, let me give you some instructions here. Everyone ready? When you look on these cards, I'd like you to read the sentence first. Just read this sentence through one time and see if you can make any sense of it. Everybody got it? Sort of a nonsense sentence, but at least you got the sentence. You could read it through. Everybody there? Okay, let me... so this time when you look at the card, would you count the number of times you see the letter F on this card? One time, and then turn your cards face down. Ready? It's not a life's work. It's just a quick glance. Okay. How many letters on yours?
6.
We have a 6. Any other 6s in the audience here? Any 5s? 4s? 3s? Some people have 3s. 2? 1? No Fs? 7. Someone has 7. How many people have 7? Okay. You want to swap cards around a little bit here? I think some of you may have different cards. Okay, have another look. How many Fs on your cards now? How many people have 7? Hands up. We still have 3 people who don't. We have a 5. Anyone still have 3? Someone still has a 3. Okay, we said earlier that we would make it easier to see things you couldn't see by just giving a little bit more information in a little different way than you've seen it before. So let's help this along. So when you look at the card this time, would you count the number of times you see the word of, O-F, on this card, please? Now how many Fs do you have? 7 Fs. Where were they a second ago?
They were Vs.
So these Fs somehow disappeared. Now, isn't that magic? See, many of us, when we were children, were conditioned to read phonetically. And we were told, whenever you see this combination of letters, O-F, the F like a V, of. And the mind is so clever that it has a problem. What it's perceiving is an F, but the F is behind an O. So it says, no problem. The truth is, when you see that F doesn't count. It's really a V. Discard that one. How many Fs on this card? The answer is 3. But yet there were 7 right in front of our eyes. How can that be? Well, we were conditioned to distort information. Literally, the mind was distorting information based on some previous instructions. Wonder if that's happening in any other areas of your life. I wonder. It's happened to me. I've found that sometimes the instructions that I've given myself to operate off of give me a very distorted look at life. They cause me to think and act funny by other people's standards. Not those 16 people at the bar I went to and hung around. They were just like me. I could always find some of them to tell me I was right. But I'm talking about the rest of society that sometimes thought I was a little odd and that the way I was thinking and acting wasn't exactly on the same page as they were. And part of that had to do with my conditioning how I had been raised, in the family I had come from, in the community I had come from, and the things that had happened to me in my life up to the point that I started into recovery. And I really needed an overhaul here. And the beauty of this is the 12-step process gives us the information to see where we've got these funny instructions coded into our autopilot system. And then, if we choose to, we can make changes. So it's not like this is some sort of brainwashing process, but we do get the tools to wash our own brain if we'd like to. And that's a useful set of tools to have. So what we've built on now is some foundation information. We've had a detailed instruction look at the first step, and now we've talked about mental health. We started this discussion with came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that sent us off on a tangent of my creation to think about what did this term insanity or sanity mean, and into a model for mental health. We're going to build on this model throughout this seminar. We'll be talking about how we use this model to our advantage as opposed to being victims of our own inbuilt capability to lead a life according to a set of scripts of our own making. So we'll leave this piece of the workshop here, and then we'll come back and talk specifically about how to find the instructions for the second step and how to use those to change our life.
Now is a good time to utilize a talking circle with your group. Focus on a subject which was discussed on the tape. Everything's so simple and we make everything so complicated. That's why we're confused. Vicky Downey, Tiwa Pueblo.